So I'm going to go straight in and we're going to have a look at the news for the past 7 days. Okay, so as is our usual want, we are going to go to Copilot first and see what Copilot has to tell us. And as you know from previous streams, we are now excluding social media. We don't want social media. Sorry, we are including social media. We are excluding mainstream media. So when I ask Copilot, it's exclude mainstream media. So independent and non-mainstream UK outlets have been covering very different stories from the big broadcasters this week, focusing on government accountability, local corruption, social justice issues, and grassroots investigations. Okay. Severe weather and infrastructure failures. Okay. Heavy rain and flooding caused major disruptions across parts of the UK, with roads submerged and emergency services stretched. So that's from the BBC. Independent outlets highlighted local council underfunding and poor drainage maintenance, issues often downplayed by mainstream media. So as taxpayers, that's where your money goes, and it's obviously not going to the infrastructure for our roads. Okay. Political tensions over AI regulation. Now, I've seen a lot of this on social media, especially on X, formerly known as Twitter. There has been a lot of discussion about AI regulation. So UK-US tensions escalated over Elon Musk's Grok AI, with independent podcasts and small outlets reporting on behind-the-scenes disagreements and regulatory pressures. Coverage focused on transparency concerns and government overreach rather than the personality-driven narrative seen in major outlets. It's interesting. In the UK here, Starmer has decided that X may well be banned if Elon Musk doesn't abide by certain guidelines that Starmer feels should be put in place. And the reason I say it's interesting is because I've been seeing Starmer post various things about how well the economy is doing, how wonderful Labour are doing since they got into power. And whenever he's posted, I have commented. And I have asked him if he would please comment on the hunger strikes in the UK, which really has been kept out of the mainstream media. And if you're unsure of what that's about, the people who have been basically not charged yet, they're on remand. So they were arrested, they've been placed on remand, and they've been on remand for a considerably long time. And they're not actually going to be in a courtroom until I think it's June or July this year. And in protest, because that will have been about a year and a half, on one of our news, I'm sure it was one of our news hubs, I showed you a clip of Jeremy Corbyn, who was discussing the hunger strike in protest to the fact that these people are still on remand and haven't had a court date set. And the fact that they're on hunger strike is bad enough, but the government isn't taking any notice of it. And they're now, one of the girls, I think, is past 60 days of hunger strike. And if you know anything about any hunger strikes in the past, it's very rare to get so far and not have really very dire consequences. So there's a lot of rallying around on social media, because the mainstream media won't cover it, to fight and protest for these hunger strikers. So every time Starmer has posted anything on his social media, on Twitter, X, I have deliberately asked him what he is doing about the hunger strike in the UK, and no response at all. None. I've also asked him about what our RAF are doing in Cyprus when it comes to their movements from their Cyprus base over Gaza, and how the intelligence from those flights are being fed back to Israel. And nothing has come out about that at all, even though it's been documented all over social media. So I feel that Starmer feels under a great deal of pressure when he's on social media. I think that the fact that he's using the indecency, the fact that Grok AI can take a picture of somebody or have a picture of somebody and then put them in a bikini, which has happened to Starmer a few times on X. So you can understand why he's using that. But I have a feeling that there's a deeper reality to it. I think that he's polling so low now, when it comes to people liking him or not liking him. The majority of the country are screaming that they don't approve of him at all and want him removed. I think there's a third petition that's gone through to ask the government to remove him as Prime Minister, and that, as far as I'm aware, is going to be discussed at some point, and I will bring you more information on that from a research point of view. So when we do the Research Hub, I'll look into that. But that, I think, is very much to do with why he's so angry at X, because it's a free speech platform and people are really laying into him. And it's, I suppose, if you put yourself in Starmer's shoes, it's got to be humiliating for a start, but also really demoralizing for him. And the things that people are saying to him is he's not following through on the things that he said he was going to do. He's not accomplished the things that he set out to accomplish, and we feel let down. We feel greatly let down. And there seems to be a huge amount of hypocrisy coming from our government at the moment, especially when it comes to things like digital ID, which we will be discussing a little bit later. So yeah, when it comes to the when it comes to this, the AI regulation, I have different thoughts on what that's about. Knife crime and community safety failures. Independent reporting revisited the Croydon stabbing case, highlighting systemic failures in youth services and policing gaps rather than sensational headlines. Local journalists emphasised long-term patterns rather than single incidents. That's very concerning. The rise in knife crime. I'll look into the rise in knife crime from a research point of view, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. Obviously, from a health and well-being perspective, knife crime is a very worrying thing, because if you're worried about confrontation at any point because somebody might have a knife, that's going to impact your health and well-being. So I will research that. I'll make a note of that, and we'll research that for the future. National Health Service crisis, local impacts and whistleblower accounts. Independent health reports covered new data showing record hate crime increases, including attacks on disabled and LGBTQ plus people, and how this intersects with national health support gaps. Several outlets also ran whistleblower stories about staff shortages, unsafe wards, and privatisation creep, topics often softened in mainstream coverage. That is something I will definitely be looking into. I haven't actually seen very much about that on social media, I must say. That's coming from the BBC, which is mainstream media. But I will look into it and we'll see if there's a deeper kind of research dive that we might need to do. Housing insecurity and local authority failures. Independent investigations highlighted rising homelessness, unsafe temporary accommodation, and councils struggling with bankruptcy risks. These stories rarely make national headlines but dominate local independent reporting. Now, we don't have any references for that. It's not given me anything to click on to reference. Copilot hasn't. The rising homelessness is a massive issue. Unsafe temporary accommodation, that is going to drastically affect your health and well-being, especially from a poverty point of view as well. Councils struggling with bankruptcy risks. My argument for that or about that would be, how are they spending the money that they get from government? And why would they be at risk of bankruptcy? From a health and well-being point of view, we will look at the homelessness and the temporary accommodation. Just from an interest point of view, it'd be interesting to see which councils are struggling, and if there's like a kind of, whether it's the north or whether it's the south, the west, the east, and we can see whereabouts the struggles are. So I'll dive into that a little bit more and we'll see. Economic pressure on small communities. Independent business reporters focused on small town closures, local food bank strain, and energy bill debt spikes. Issues overshadowed by national political drama. There is a lot of geopolitical drama at the moment, at present, from our government, and there's quite an outcry from people that while you're sending lots of attention abroad, your attention should really be focused on the problems we have in the UK. So from that point of view, energy bill is a massive thing. It's massive. We've talked about this before. It's can you feed yourself or do you heat yourself? And from a pensioner point of view, it's huge. Food bank strain. So it sounds like more people are using food banks. Again, we don't have a reference for these, but I will look into it. Pressure on small communities. I'll take a bit of a dive, because as a community, if the community suffers overall from a health and well-being point of view for a group of people within the community, that's an issue. That's something that we need to put our finger on. We need to look at and consider the consequences for our health and well-being when it comes to that. Why these stories differ from mainstream. Independent outlets tend to prioritise local accountability over national political theatre. I like the fact that Copilot uses the word theatre. Cover systemic issues rather than single event headlines. Investigate underreported communities. Avoid government aligned or corporate editorial pressures. Okay. So we won't go into a deeper dive on that. So that's from Copilot. So that's for the last 7 days. Now we'll go to Claude. As you know, Claude comes from a different ownership, an ownership that I'm still investigating and looking into. Okay, so we have parliamentary and political news. This is something that I'm very interested in and I'm currently researching at the moment. I will bring it to you when I've completed the deep dive research that I'm doing at present. We've spoken about this before, the assisted dying bill. As far as I'm aware, it's sitting with the House of Lords at the moment. It's passed the Houses of Parliament. It's gone to the House of Lords. So we still have time for it to change, for things to change. But there has been a lot of controversy that I've seen. And this is what my fear was when it came to the assisted dying bill. The assisted dying bill was initially put through Parliament as a bill that would allow people with terminal illness to choose to end their own life. And the documentation, this is why it's taken me so long from a research point of view, the documentation is extensive. What you have to do in order to make that decision, all of the hoops that you have to jump through in order to make that decision, and all of the professionals that need to be on board with the decision you're making, makes for an awful lot of documentation. And that's what I've been researching. That's what I've been looking through and going through with a fine-tooth comb, the documentation side of things. However, I did see something on social media recently that said, when it comes to assisted dying, that some MPs are saying that if you're depressed and you would like to end your life, then that could be something that could go into the assisted dying bill as well. That really concerns me. That's atrocious. That's absolutely awful. So let's see what Claude has to say. Assisted dying bill progress. The House of Lords has been conducting extensive committee stage debates on the assisted dying bill, with the 5th sitting on January the 9th covering just 2 groups of amendments. The House voted to support Lord Falconer's motion for additional time to complete consideration, as the current pace suggests the scheduled Friday sittings won't be sufficient to finish by April. I'm glad they're taking their time. I'm really glad they're taking their time, because this isn't something that should be taken lightly. And when we look at other countries that have assisted dying, like Canada, for example, it really feels like a way to declutter the population, like an easy out. It's giving governments an easy out. That's how it feels. Okay, family farm tax amendments. The government announced changes to increase the agricultural and business property relief threshold from 1 million to 2.5 million, representing a significant policy shift following backlash over inheritance tax changes affecting farmers. Okay. There's been a lot of controversy, not just in the UK, across the world. There's been a lot of controversy. I saw a social media post from, I think it was France, don't quote me on that. I think it was France, where farmers turned up in their tractors and piled a huge amount of manure at political buildings, at governmental buildings, in protest about how they're being treated. So it's not just in the UK. It is something that's affecting farmers across the world. And it's not, I mean, for us, it's the inheritance tax issue, because I'm not sure if you're aware, but farmers weren't subject to inheritance tax. So if their family wanted to continue to keep the farm after parents or grandparents had died, they could hand the farm down and there would be no inheritance tax to pay. However, that was changed, and that's why people are in uproar. And we can't lose our farmers. We can't lose our farmers. It's really important that we have access to good food that's grown or produced in this country. And if a farm isn't viable because they can't afford the inheritance tax, that makes a huge, huge problem. Immigration rule changes. New English language requirements come into force on January the 8th, with skilled worker, scale up, and high potential individual visa applicants now needing B2 level English rather than B1. That's come from the House of Commons Library. Additional permanent residence rule changes are planned for April 2026. It's interesting because when Britons go abroad, we have a tendency to expect everybody to speak English. We're quite conceited when it comes to it. However, English is the second language in a majority of countries. So I don't think it's unreasonable, if you're going to come to our country, that you learn the language and learn the language to a level where you are able to function. From a health and well-being point of view, imagine being displaced from your country where you speak your own language and coming to a country where you don't speak the language at all. And how disrupting that would be for you, but also for the people in the country that you're traveling to or you're moving to. I know, like I say, as Brits, we're quite conceited and we expect everybody in other countries to speak English when we speak English there. But I really think that it's more beneficial for people, immigrants who come to this country, to learn a higher level of English in order to be not accepted, but to be integrated, to have a feeling of acceptance from their own point of view, but also from the community that they're moving into. Okay. Economic and business stories. The FTSE 100 milestone. The FTSE 100 broke through the 10,000 level for the first time since launching in 1984, closing at 10,122.73 on the opening trading day of 2026. I know nothing about the FTSE. I've heard of it, but I don't really know anything about it. It's not my area of expertise. It's not something I'd probably look into. Hiring slowdown. UK businesses have cut back on hiring following the autumn budget, contributing to concerns about the job market entering 2026. A hiring slowdown. Okay. Well, from a health and well-being point of view, if your way of earning a living is affected by not being able to get work, then that's going to be very difficult. But it's going to be difficult all round. I will look into it. It might not be something we go into in great depth from a research point of view, but I will have a look and see. Nationwide find. The FCA fined Nationwide Building Society 44 million for inadequate anti-financial crime systems and controls between October 2016 and July 2021. Wow. 44 million sounds like a lot to me, little old me, and probably sounds like a lot to you, little old you. But I guarantee to Nationwide, that's like a penny. Okay, defence and foreign affairs. Defence funding gap. Britain's most senior military chief warned the Prime Minister that the Ministry of Defence faces a 28 billion shortfall over the next 4 years despite spending increase plans. I know that Starmer was looking at increasing the defence budget, and I'm unsure why. I know that there's been a lot of propaganda about Russia, but I think that the United States has asked us to increase our defence budget, and that will be in line with their policies and what they are hoping to achieve globally, worldwide. Okay, Russian tanker seizure. UK armed forces supported the US seizure of a Russian-flagged tanker, with Russia accusing Britain of maritime piracy. A Russian zombie tanker subsequently sailed through the channel. I class it as piracy as well. Why would we? This isn't in our waters. This is in international waters, as far as I'm aware. Why would we feel the need to aid the US to seize a Russian tanker? When I saw this, it incensed me. Talk about provocation. It's like poking the bear. Don't poke the bear. Why would you poke the bear? Why would you poke the Russian bear? It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. And to seize their tanker, it's provocation at the highest level. Okay, weather and the environment. Now, we had weather from Copilot. So far, Claude has given us different stories for the week than Copilot has. Severe weather. The Met Office issued an amber warning for heavy snow across eastern Scotland on January the 10th, with accumulations of 5 to 15 centimetres at low levels and potentially 20 to 30 centimetres over higher elevations. The British Association for Shooting and Conservation called for voluntary restraint in shooting waterfowl in Scotland due to the severe conditions. Okay. Not much there that needs to be kind of dived into. These stories come from parliamentary publications, specialist financial legal sources, and community-focused news outlets rather than mainstream media. So that's Claude. The assisted dying bill, something, like I said, I'm already looking into, and something I will bring more information to you on because I think it's very, very important. The rest of it, I might delve into a little bit just to see if there's any kind of further research that needs to be done. Now for grok. We do love grok. If you remember, grok has a tendency to be overtly honest. Here are some of the top UK news stories circulating in the past week. So from the 7th to the 14th. Institutional failures and two-tier policing. A major theme has been revelations about police conduct, including claims that officers in Birmingham prioritised Islamist extremists' demands while scapegoating Jewish individuals targeted in related violence. Reports also highlighted how diversity recruitment allegedly allowed criminals, including child rapists, to join the police. Wow. This narrative was amplified widely on X, with users and commentators like Matt Goodwin summarising it as part of a broader destruction of the country. There's been quite a lot of controversy when it comes to policing and police conduct. I'm not sure, and I haven't seen about the Birmingham Islamic extremist demands and scapegoating Jewish individuals targeted in related violence. I haven't seen anything personally on X about that, but from a health and well-being point of view, it must be really quite worrying if you live in Birmingham. So I will look into it, and it will be interesting to see if Birmingham comes under the councils that are struggling at the moment. We'll see. UAE restricting students due to radicalisation concerns. United Arab Arab Emirates reportedly limited support for its students studying in UK universities over fears of Islamist radicalisation risks in Britain. This was cited as evidence of international concern about UK societal issues. I have seen on X a lot of talk about how the UK supports Islamist ideals. It's difficult because even though I've asked to exclude mainstream media, we can't trust the mainstream media. We know that because of the DSMA. And if you haven't seen the DSMA video, it's up on YouTube. It's disturbing. It's very concerning. But that's why we don't look at mainstream media. However, the thing that I'm noticing a lot is on social media, what has commonly been called bots. And bots basically are trying to guide the narrative on certain issues around the world. It's not just in the UK. So when it comes to this Islamist hysteria in the UK, I'm not so sure how real that is. I'm not so sure if it's an issue or whether it's a mass of bot farm hysteria. It could be looked at. I'll look into it because that will come under the Birmingham thing as well, and maybe the councils. So I'll look into it and we'll see if I can dive into it a little bit deeper and see what the big issues are. I know Tommy Robinson has a big no over Islamist. And I know Farage is not very happy about those issues. So I will dive into it a little, but I'm not going to do a deep dive because from a health and wellbeing point of view, I'm not sure that it kind of fits within my purview. Okay, civil servants threatened. Oh, sorry. Start that again. Civil servants threatening to sabotage reform government. Unelected civil servants allegedly stated they would quit or actively block policies if Reform UK wins power, particularly on immigration, DEI, which is diversity, equity and inclusion, and banning groups like the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay. We have a new party that's come. There's Reform UK, and there's another one, Remake UK, not Remake. I'll find it out for next time. It's bound to come up in the news at some point. It's bound to. Government threats to X. So we have this again. Keir Starmer and ministers indicated all options are on the table to address Elon Musk's Grok AI creating sexualized deepfakes, including of children, with some viewing this as a potential move to restrict free speech or ban the platform. Alternative outlets like Byline Times covered Starmer's spokesperson, calling such content completely unacceptable. Well, it is unacceptable, especially if it's of children. But like we said earlier, I'm really not sure. I think that might be an excuse because X is very free speech, much more free speech than you're allowed to have on YouTube, much more free speech than you can have on Facebook. So I think it's an excuse. I think it's a cover. I think as disturbing as seeing Keir Starmer in a bathing suit, in a bikini, as disturbing as that was, and I've seen a few of them on X. Yeah, I think it has more to do with you get more information from X than you do from many other platforms. And the fact that people have lost faith in mainstream media, and X has become the biggest news outlet in the world, I think. In the world. Okay. Delays to local elections and other political moves. Claims surfaced that the Labour government is postponing local elections in areas where Reform UK might surge, alongside broader criticisms of scrapping jury trials and other policies seen as distrusting ordinary citizens. I had seen that the government wants to scrap jury trials. I'm unsure if it's even being shown in the mainstream media because I don't follow the mainstream media at all. I would hazard a guess that it's not. However, when it comes to jury trials, I think if you look into it, you will find that there are very few jury trials now. Anyway, I think the Crown Prosecution Service push to have cases sewn up with plea deals. So if you plead to this, then you'll only get this as a reprimand. I think they're more inclined to go through that route and go down that route, and have been for a reasonable amount of time, than jury trials. That being said, common law dictates that anybody who is accused of anything must be judged by a jury of their peers. And a jury of their peers is a jury of you and me, people in the community, people in the public, the general public. It's down to us to make an adjudication and to decide if these people are guilty or not. So that's a bit of a double-edged sword. I really think that is something that shouldn't happen. I think jury trials are really important, and I think that they should continue. And if this gets passed without consultation of the public, then that is just another thing that government has done that is underhand and deceitful, as far as I'm concerned. Immigration and asylum issues. Again, from Byline Times, reports of extreme physical and emotional abuse in UK immigration removal centres affecting 100 detainees, and a British woman stranded in Hungary after the Home Office refused to let her bring her niece to the UK. Oh, okay. Well, that's not great. That's not great at all. Okay. Immigration and asylum issues. Well, extreme physical and emotional abuse in UK immigration removal centres. So this is people who've come into the country and are being removed from the country. It's worth having a look at. I'm not sure I'll go into a deep dive research on it. Other notable mentions: ongoing hunger strikes. Thank goodness this didn't come up. I can't believe that Copilot didn't talk about this, and that Claude didn't talk about this. Ongoing hunger strikes linked to Palestine action, with hospitalizations and criticisms of government's response. Yes. Every time I see anything to do with the hunger strike and the Palestine action people, I immediately repost it. I repost it because it is really important that we don't leave these people to die. And that's what's happening at the moment. The government is doing this. They're doing their la la la, I'm not listening. And it's atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious. It's so bad. And the thing that really pisses me off, it doesn't piss me off that we now We now have a Palestinian embassy. I think that's fabulous that the UK now has a Palestinian embassy, because that means that the UK recognise the Palestinians as a state within their own right for them to have their own embassy. And if that's the case, then why is Palestinian action still being covered? As in, you can't talk about it, you can't protest from a Palestinian action point of view. If the UK has said that we can have a Palestinian embassy and has implemented and has now got a Palestinian embassy, then why are we not allowed to protest about what's happening in Palestine? They've recognised it as a state, so why can't we protest about the atrocities that are happening there? I don't get it. I don't understand. And from the Palestinian Action Group, the things that they did, Elbit Systems, where they went and wrecked a load of stuff, I don't agree with going in and harming. I agree with protest. I agree with drawing attention to things. I don't think vandalism is a great way to go, personally, but that's just my opinion. I don't agree with hurting anybody else ever. There's no need for that. The day you have to hurt somebody else physically is the day you completely have lost the argument, as far as I'm concerned. There are ways to protest, but the fact that they've been put in prison and they're there, and they have been there for a year and a half without on remand. Normally, if you're on remand, it's between 1 and 6 months, just to give you an idea. So basically, the government have locked them up and said, no, we don't care what you have to say. We don't care what you think. In some cases, they've put them far away from their families, so their families can't even visit. And this is what the hunger strike is about. The fact that they're in places where they're remote, and also the fact that their court cases aren't coming up until mid this year. It's just not acceptable. Sorry, you can tell I'm a bit passionate about it. I cannot believe our government is not talking about it at all. I think the new Your Party that Jeremy Corbyn is still a part of, has mentioned it and has posted about it, and I think there's a possibility that it's been brought up in Parliament. I will look into that. But yeah, I think it's atrocious. Okay, broader critiques of Labour's direction including anti-migrant vigilantism inspired by policy and cultural commentary, e.g. on TV shows like The Traitors as Fake Scotland. Well, I don't know about that because I don't have a TV, as you know. I don't have a TV. So I'm not sure what they're discussing there. These stories dominate alternative discussions, often framing the week as one of institutional surrender to extremists and attacks on public trust. Note that alternative sources can carry strong biases, and many of these claims stem from investigative reports, leaks, or opinion pieces rather than fully verified mainstream consensus. For deeper dives, check outlets like Byline Times or Novara Media directly. Okay, so that was Grok. So a few things that we've already discussed. There's a few crossovers between the other two. But as it stands, there are things that I will look further into and more deeply from a research point of view. We'll do a deeper dive. And I will bring those to you on the Research Hub, which is posted through on a Wednesday to YouTube. So that is the news for this week.